Good morning and welcome to Rising. Emily, we've got a tremendous show today.
Whoa.
Tremendous. Going to be incredible. What do we got for people?
We've got a lot, including some news that you might want to stick around for at the end of the show. Ryan has been just swigging pumpkin spice lattes.
That's right.
He just can't get enough.
Fall is here.
Yeah, he's a big fan of the PSL. I didn't expect it, but he just can't get enough of it. No, truly, we have a lot going on. There was a speech given just last night in primetime by the President of the United States as we head into the fall. Quite literally, he did this in the very beginning of September as the midterm season is opening up. After Labor Day weekend, the money starts coming in. President Biden goes and gives this primetime address last night. We're going to play some clips of it and do a little analysis. But Ryan, just right off the bat, what was your reaction to the speech?
Well, this whole conceit that it's not going to be political is silly from the beginning. It's a speech about democracy.
Yeah.
Like, we forget, I guess, because we've been a democracy for 200 plus years, that the idea of democracy is fundamentally political and constantly in tension with other kind of drives in both the economy, both the political economy. It's always been a fight. So the idea that, like, even if you're just going to get up there and give a paean to democracy, that's political. What do you think the Declaration of Independence was? What was the Constitution? This is political stuff.
I have a take on that because actually Ron Klain, a senior White House official, brought that up. So let's listen to what President Biden had to say about the threats to our democracy first, and we'll dive into everything.
And now, America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past, to be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together we can choose a different path.
I feel like that's a pretty characteristic excerpt of how the speech went in general. The president said early on in the speech, I want to be very clear up front, not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans, are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But, he continued, there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, and that is a threat to this country. So he then goes on in thousands more words to specifically reference MAGA Republicans in this entire speech about threats to democracy. Huge problem, though, is that this definition is not very clear, and the White House has struggled every single day this week with questions about the definition of that. I think we have a clip of Karine Jean-Pierre trying to do that right here.
Again, we see majority of Americans who disagree. And so when you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
So you're an extremist if you're outside of the majority position, which, is constantly changing.
Depends on how far out you are, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, constantly shifting. And so, Ryan, from my perspective, that was the real problem with this speech. It's that if you are going to give a major address on the eve of an election cycle, on the eve of the fall midterm cycle, about the threat to democracy that the other party faces, and you cannot clearly define what that threat looks like, you politically, as a matter of politics and principle, are stepping into something really dark, and I don't think particularly helpful, because you're implicating a vast swath of the country in something extremely dark. And I just think that's bad politics. The optics were really bad. It's the White House. He wasn't well lit. The red lighting was weird. People had problems with the Marines. But in and of itself, I don't think that's good politics, and I obviously object to it in principle too.
Well, do you see yourself when he says MAGA Republican? Are you like, he's talking about me or he's talking about somebody else?
I would hope that people don't think of me as a MAGA Republican, but I think they would, because, for instance, I fully support ending Roe. And Karine Jean-Pierre was pressed on that in the briefing, and basically was like, if you're outside the mainstream position on abortion, which I am, I acknowledge I am, then you're an extremist and you are a threat to democracy.
Right, and that very much predates MAGA Republicans. I thought it was a missed opportunity because it is able to be defined. Like, the way I would define it is, somebody who to this day is still like griping about the 2020 election and claiming like beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was stolen.
Which it was not, yeah.
Right. And so like that to me is a MAGA Republican. The rest of it, I feel like you fight it out. You want to, hey, MAGA Republicans, let's say they want to ban Muslims from entering the country. They want to build a wall. They want to cut corporate taxes. They want to, whatever they want to do. Like that, those are things that they can say they want to do. They can run on it. You have an election, and then the election has consequences, and Democrats will put up their own positions up against them. It's when you come in and say, actually, no, we don't recognize the validity of this election. That, to me, is what you could have carved out and defined. And the reason I think he missed this opportunity, and I'm going to talk about this in my radar soon, is he could have singled out the Michigan Republican Party, which just this week is at the Board of Elections blocked a referendum to codify Roe v. Wade from getting onto the ballot. They turned in over 700,000 signatures, which is, you only need 400,000 plus to get on the ballot. And 2 Republicans on the Board of Elections, whose only job really is to count the signatures and check whether or not they match the address of the voter. And then, boom, you're on the ballot. Like you're not on the Board of Elections to dictate what people get to vote on. That's up to the people. They said, no, you just can't vote on this. Like, we're not going to allow you democratically to vote on this. It's like, well, hey, Alito said the states are going to do this. They're like, no, we're not going to do it like this. So he could have singled out, said, you have Republicans on the Board of Elections in Michigan who won't even let 700,000 people who've signed a petition, vote on the question of codifying Roe v. Wade. That's fundamentally un-American. Like, you could have given some individual examples.
Yeah.
And also then define that what you mean, since it's a speech about democracy, like it's not much of a big step to say, what I mean is people who don't recognize elections are the MAGA Republicans.
Well, and here's a quote that really stood out to me. I will not stand by, and as you listen to this, think of if it sounds familiar. Pretend this wasn't, you have no context for this. I will not stand by and watch the will of the American people be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. I will not stand by and watch elections in this country stolen by people who simply refuse to accept that they lost. Okay, that first paragraph in particular where he says the will of the American people, he won't watch that be overturned by wild conspiracy theories and baseless evidence-free claims of fraud. That is what his entire party spent the Trump presidency doing through the FBI and the DOJ, because they thought the will of the people, as Peter Strzok said, we'll have a plan. Basically, the will of the people need to be protected from themselves, from the unwashed masses. He was like, the smell of Walmart was making fun of that in those texts to Lisa Page. They spent an entire thing like concocting this narrative based on lies, essentially, and they weaponized the intelligence community to do it. And if we're talking about extremism, President Biden is way outside the mainstream when it comes to transgender ideology, when it comes to a host of, probably when it comes to abortion. If you ask what limits should be on abortion, I guarantee you most Washington Democrats will have a really hard time saying they support limits on abortion, and I'm happy to admit my position is outside the mainstream. That's also outside the mainstream. So when you get into this battle about what constitutes extremism in mainstream, and you have an old man yelling at the country with blood red lighting behind him, slurring and stumbling his way through the speech, I don't think it works.
Although, and do you think that they were deliberately channeling the Dark Brandon meme with the red and the shadow and the darkness and the?
But they had to know that wasn't going to come across well. I don't know.
I don't know. We're in a place where everything's about the base.
It's all the meme.
Yeah, and so if they can trigger Trump, then yes. Trump freaks out. Trump then moves closer to the center of the conversation, which is exactly where Democrats want him, by kind of embracing Dark Brandon. That fires up the Democratic base as well. In some ways, I saw somebody say, you reaped Let's Go Brandon, now you'll sow Dark Brandon.
That's hilarious.
There you go, reaping and sowing.
Yeah, I think this is clearly
Combining memes.
This is clearly like the midterm strategy, and it's not an entirely stupid midterm strategy. It didn't work in Virginia to make it all about Trump because there was a candidate there who sort of deftly steered it away. But if you can have this looming over every Republican candidate's head, as you say, if you can trigger a response, if you can get a drip, they're going to do more J6 hearings, I'm sure. If you can drip that out through the fall, you eat away at time that could be spent talking about inflation, gas prices, or anything else. So we'll see if it works.
We'll see.
All right.
All right. We'll have our radars up next.
That's right.